Eritrea got its independence from Ethiopia, I believe, in 1993. And one of the reasons that there is this massive issue around human rights is because even though the country separated and Eritrea got its independence, there is mandatory conscription in Eritrea. And I think a big part of that is the fact that Eritrea has felt that there's always a threat that, there might be another conflict with Ethiopia. So just explain how that works, right? So essentially you have mandatory conscription in Eritrea that means that people can be conscripted almost indefinitely, right? And this is what sort of contributes to the migrant crisis as well, where we see a lot of people, from East Africa in general, Ethiopia as well, but especially Eritreans risking their lives to flee to the Gulf, flee across the Mediterranean to Europe.
Yeah, I think in Eritrean independence for the first 10 years, 91 was like the de facto, and then 93 is when they did the referendum and officially were kind of separated. But there was a war from 98 to 2000, and that was a very brutal war. And it's a war that affected every single Eritrean family. Of course, Ethiopians, a lot of Ethiopians, but specifically in the Eritrean context. And so the memory of that war was very helpful for the Eritrean government to say, this could happen again. As you said, we need to be ready at any point. We're a small country. We're against this very big nation that has support, the national support, regional support. And it was instrumentalized by the Eritrean government very well to create a fear that was constant, and that could be that could mean the end of Eritrea essentially. And because it was instrumentalized in that way, a lot of people believed the government and were like, we need to do everything that we can to defend our country. But the government essentially used that to do everything they wanted. So they shut down all democratic institutions. They imprisoned any opposition parties, or they weren't even opposition party, people from within their own government who were seen as critical, or people they thought were going to oppose them or had opposed them. They imprisoned journalists. The key journalists in the country were all taken in September alongside these politicians. They shut down the free press. They shut down the parliament. They never implemented the constitution. They shut down civil society. Elections were cancelled. Any form of democratic institution, platform, or individual was shut down. They refused to accept the Border Commission's findings or decision in 2000. And so there were definitely no one saying Ethiopia wasn't a threat, but what Eritrea was turned into was not proportionate to that threat. And mandatory national service was a part of that, saying we have to have an army that's ready at any point to fight. But national service isn't just about the military, which a big part of it. It's more than anything, it's a labor force that works for the Eritrean government essentially for free. And they work in any sector that the Eritrean government chooses, for them to work in. Even if you go through the minor education systems that we have, because I forgot to mention earlier, the university was also shut down because obviously universities, there were protests and there were organizing happening. They shut that down. And so the militarization of education started around then too, that people had to go to a military camp for the final year of high school. And then few of those people got education, but that education is very limited. And even then it wasn't very good. And then even after that, they were channeled back into national service system. So national service has become a free labor force for the Eritrean government. And obviously all of them are conscripts. So they are ready to fight at any point.